We finished Way of Kings. It took us 2 months to finish it, but we did it. Was it worth it in the end? Yes. Very yes. Hi everybody, my name is Victoria and I have one of the complete honors of being one of the co-hosts for the Stormlight Archives read-along called Stormalong 2020. This is a read-along that is mainly hosted by Christy Lewis, Dostoevsky in Space, but also co-hosted by myself, Seeking Stories, which consists of Ryan and Kristen, and also Michael and Knipp. Both Michael and Ryan have some specific Stormlight Archives related videos that they have been working really hard on, and I'll link a few of my favorites down below, so definitely go and check out their videos when you get a chance if you have not done so already. They're both really great, and of course go check out Christy. We're doing live streams on Christy's channel every 2 weeks, and we actually have ours tomorrow as of the day that I will be posting this. So we would love for you to participate in the live streams. We're having a blast talking about the books, and I think this next live stream is gonna be epic because we have finished the first book. All right, let's get down to business. To defeat the Huns. Sorry, every time I say let's get down to business, I have to continue with the song every single time. Today I'm going to be doing a spoiler-free discussion of this book, and I'm doing that because I want to save any of my spoilery thoughts for the live stream tomorrow. So if you haven't read this book yet, or maybe you fell behind a little bit in the readathon and didn't finish on time with us, this is the video for you because we ain't spoiling nothing around here. So fun fact, I actually picked up my copy of this paperback at a used bookstore, which I now realize how incredibly lucky I was to find this at a used bookstore, because even the paperbacks are like ridiculously expensive for paperbacks, but they're worth it, let's be honest. At the time that I bought my copy, I had no immediate inclination to pick it up right away because just look at it, my mentality was, I have to save this book for a time that I can really just only read this book and put all of my mental capacity into understanding this. Unfortunately, that meant that it sat on my shelves for a while, and thank goodness Christy saw them on my shelves and she was like, hey, you wanna participate in a read-along? And I was like, heck yeah. So thank you, Christy, for involving me and for making me read these, because I probably would have prolonged them even more if I hadn't done Stormalong 2020, so yeah, that's just me. This book I would consider now in my top 5 books of all time. Is there an official list right now? Not really, but if I was gonna make a list of my top favorite books, I think this would make the top 5. I would try to give you a synopsis of this book, but honestly, it's not really gonna help you. I think a big part of reading this book is actually just trying to figure out what the heck it's about, and so I would not want to take that experience away from you. But I think all you really need to know about this book is that it's high fantasy. We follow multiple perspectives. The chapters alternate between perspectives, kind of like Game of Thrones. It's a very character-focused plot, and also the world building is massive and on a scope that I don't think I've ever seen before. The world that we are brought into is definitely a very dangerous world to live in, and it's very much just showing you the different kingdoms and cultures, and the main center of the plot has to do with the conflicts between those kingdoms and cultures. So that's really all I can tell you without ruining something. Each of the Stormlight Archives entries follows a different character and their backstory and their flashbacks. So this one focuses on our main character, Kaladin, and I actually did a little bit of musical composing. I did a theme for Kaladin and Syl. So if you would like to check that out, I'll link that down below in the description too. So this seems to be a pretty typical experience for the readers of this book, but I wasn't completely invested 100% into it until maybe about the halfway point of this book. And in a 1,000-page book, the halfway point is about 500 pages. So I do think if you DNF this book any earlier than that, maybe that's too early. It's hard to tell you that because I don't want you to read something you're not enjoying, but I'm just saying this book takes time to develop, and I would just hate to see people give up on it too early. So those are just kind of my 2 cents there. Pretty much everybody, including myself, is pretty confused for a lot of the book, and I think that has a lot to do with the way that Sanderson chooses to both give information and withhold information from us. I've watched a few Brandon Sanderson interviews now where he's talked about the struggle of pacing such a large series and just the complex challenges that the pacing of a 1,000-page book even brings. He's planning on this being a 10-book series, and if you can believe it, this is the shortest entry at around 1,000 pages. All of the entries that we've gotten after that are even bigger. So I think if you think about the series in terms of the scope and how long it's going to be and how many pages each of these books is, I think you have to kind of acclimate to the pacing of it. I think you need to just know that going in and be prepared for that. I can definitely understand that if you were writing a series like this of this scope, that you wouldn't want to give your readers all the information up front. You want them to be invested. You want them to take the time to read all the details in every single page of your very long book. I do think out of all of the Sanderson books that I've read so far, this one does the best job at showing you how things work rather than telling you how they work, and in that way it allows the reader to explore on their own. I think that's an incredibly rewarding experience for a reader to be shown things rather than told things. By showing rather than telling, I really feel like Sanderson allows me as a reader to explore as I go, and he allows me to use my brain. Yeah, I know, there's a brain somewhere up there. I know, it's hard to tell, but there is. I've had kind of an interesting experience reading this because I'm also reading Mistborn. Currently, I'm in the middle of, well, actually, no, I'm not in the middle. I'm actually towards the end of the 3rd book in the Mistborn era 1. So I've been kind of reading Mistborn alongside of Way of Kings for the last couple months. And so it has been really interesting to me to kind of compare the feel of them and compare just the different approach to those 2 series. I've seen quite a few people now compare Mistborn to reading a YA book, and I've seen people say it has a YA feel, and I think what they mean when they say that is that we get reveals more often and quicker in Mistborn so that it compels you to read more and to continue forward. In this book, we don't get that immediate satisfaction. There's not a sense of instant gratification really at all with this book. It is a long haul kind of book. And if you're not in it for the long haul, you're not going to get that satisfaction. The payoffs do take a lot of time, but they are some of the best payoffs that I've ever seen in a book of any kind, and definitely the best payoffs in any fantasy book that I've ever read. Something that I had to accept while reading it is that being lost in this book is part of the process and part of the experience, and you have to be okay with kind of feeling like you're wandering around, not sure what's going on. That's totally okay on your first read. I don't think anyone would expect you to know what's going on. I also think you definitely have to read this book when you have headspace for it. I actually kind of struggled to read other books at the same time because my mental bandwidth just was breaking down, and I kind of had a little bit of a hard time and couldn't handle it that well. So I do think this takes a lot of focus. It takes a lot of close reading, and you can't just breeze through it quickly, but that's okay. It's not a book that you should breeze through quickly. In fact, if you're breezing through it really fast, maybe you're missing things. I don't know. I don't want to say that for everyone because everyone reads at different paces, but for me, the slower I could go, the more things I could catch, and the more things were more important to me in the payoff because I kind of saw some things that if I had been reading it really fast, I wouldn't have caught. That being said, I'm sure I missed a lot still, even while reading it slowly. I also wanted to just briefly talk about the amazing discussions about moral ambiguity and moral grayness that we get throughout the book. One of my favorite things about Sanderson's writing is his ability to develop characters so completely so that they feel like real real people who you might know in real life. They have real, genuine struggles. You can relate to them. Even the villains have something that you can relate to in some way, or you can at least see where they're coming from. You may have noticed my crazy amount of tabs in this book. I tried this tabbing system that I made up for myself, and I tabbed a few different categories of things. There's a video about it. I can link it if you want. But the purple in this book is moral questions and morality and internal struggles of characters. So can we just take a minute to appreciate how much purple there is? Yeah, there's kind of a lot of purple. As a side note, I'm revamping my tabbing system a bit because this was a really slow process. And with Words of Radiance going forward, I'm probably going to do something maybe a little bit more simple. I don't think I need to be quite as detailed as I was. Actually, I found writing down notes after every chapter was much more productive for my brain and just helped me to recap everything better. So I think I'm going to focus on the writing of the notes part and less on the tabbing part. When your characters have internal struggles and we can follow those struggles, that's when we can connect, and that's when the characters feel real. One of the things I love about Sandon's character work is that even when we have a protagonist, a hero character of sorts, and we know he's a hero and we know we're supposed to root for him, he can still have internal struggles that can maybe shock us, him or her, I should say. They can have internal struggles that can still surprise us and make us kind of question who they are and their morality and their sense of self, while also pulling us towards them and making us root for them. I think that's a really special skill. I think that's very insightful because it's just like with real people, right? You know that most people are good and most people have good intentions, but sometimes even people with good intentions don't make good decisions. And that is just so realistic and relatable. And you as a person, none of us have made the best decisions in our whole lives. We are all flawed, and our characters are flawed too. But it's just enough to also make us fall in love with them. If I'm explaining myself well at all, I don't know. So just knowing their struggles, now they're characters that I can follow with my whole heart, and I can walk alongside them, and I can put myself in their shoes. These characters just feel so real to me, and the world of Roshar also feels so real to me because of the just insanely specific world building details that he gives us. He gives us even details about plants and how plants react to the weather, and it just paints this amazing landscape that just feels like a real place. And I think not every author can do that. I think that's just something that Sanderson has put a lot of time into, and he has just really honed his craft. This is now the 7th Sanderson book that I have read so far, and by far this has been my favorite one so far. I kind of wish that I had read it sooner, but at the same time, I do think it's kind of a good idea to wet your feet with the smaller Cosmere books. I think Mistborn especially is a very good indicator of whether or not you're going to like Sanderson at all. In fact, I recently put Mistborn into my husband's hands, and he'll be the first person to tell you that he typically does not read for enjoyment. He usually does other things for enjoyment, but I was somehow able to convince him to read Mistborn, and if he likes Mistborn, you better believe I'm gonna make him read this next. Maybe, if he'll entertain the idea. I don't know how long it would take him. However, if you want to start with Way of Kings, by all means go for it. If you feel like this would be fine for you, a fine starting place, then do it because it's totally worth it, and I would recommend it to that kind of reader that just wants to dive in head first. And then if you reach the end of this book and you decide that this series isn't for you, well, my heart will be broken into a million tiny pieces, but it's okay, I will recover somehow. Nah, I'm just joking around. Read what you want to read. Life is too short to waste time on books that you're not enjoying. Except for this one. You should read this one. That's it for me today. Thank you for watching this spoiler-free gush review. I feel like my thoughts weren't super organized in this video, but hopefully my enthusiasm is at least coming through. It would just make me super happy to have more friends to talk to about this book. Just saying. you should read it. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know, are you planning on reading the series? Are you reading it with us right now? Or are you planning on picking this book up at some other point? Make sure to check out the other co-hosts video down in the description box. I think that they are just some of the best people I have ever met on the internet. They are so much fun. And I hope to chat with some of you in the live streams as well. Thank you so much to all the people who have been participating and who have been chiming in and following along with Storm Along. I appreciate every single one of you. We have had a blast talking to you, and I'm just so excited that we have 2 more books to read and that we get to read them with you. Keep reading great books, and until next time, bye-bye.